ceilings and floor. I remember saying that. I don't need to know how many podcasts have 1,300 episodes because I need my ego to be padded. I just need to know because I want to know where we stand. I need to know how much of a strength is this, you know?
I need to know that the ceiling and the floor is where we started, where we're ending, and where are we now. And I think that if you know where you are now, based on the ceiling and the floor, now you can at least shore up, make sure you're doing the right things to stay on course towards your destiny.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode number 1311, Why Relationships Get Stale. Today, for episode number 1312, 2 of the most important things to know about yourself. I was on a podcast recently, and I'm sure you hear me say that far too often. I apologize. That's where some of my best stories come from. And one of the questions I get asked very often, there are many questions I get asked, I won't say too often because obviously I'm on a lot of shows, but I'm always trying to think of how do I answer this better? Because I know I'm going to get asked this question again. How do I answer it better? And one of my favorite questions, and the one I get often, is if you were an early dream chaser, what advice do you think you would need the most? And I always say this. I think it's unreasonably important for you to know 2 things about yourself. 1, what is your number 1 unique strength? 2, what is your number 1 unique weakness or opportunity for growth? And that's what this episode's about. 2 of the most important things to know about yourself. What is your greatest strength? And what is your biggest weakness or growth opportunity? Interesting thing. If you are in a community or you're in a friend group or you grew up in a family where you're not allowed to talk about what you're good at, right? You could be really good at something, but everybody around you has convinced you that if you talk about what you're good at, you're arrogant or you're cocky or that means something bad about you. It's also going to be really hard for you to admit and then work on your weaknesses. So it's almost like if, Alan and I have been working together for a long time. Alan's given me many compliments of, hey, you're really good at this, you're really good at this. But he's also given me many opportunities to grow by saying, hey, I think you could work on this a little bit more. If Alan never said, hey, Kev, you're really good at this, and only said, hey, Kev, you should work on this more, then that probably wouldn't feel very good. On the other end, if Alan only ever said, hey, Kev, you're really good at this, hey, Kev, you're really good at this, and he never said, hey, here's an opportunity to get better at this, I would probably think I'm way better than I actually am. So it's this interesting kind of balance of many of us have really, really, really unique strengths that we don't give ourselves credit for. And if you don't give yourself credit for it, what are the odds that you pour more into it? There are also many of us, again, myself included in the past, and I'm sure at times, where I have a unique weakness that I want to avoid. And if I avoid it, obviously it's not going to get any attention and it's not going to get any better. So that is what we are talking about in today's episode.
There's so many layers to this topic and I'm trying to figure out which road I want to take, and maybe I'll take a couple and then we'll circle it all back. Synergize it. I like that word, synergize it. Kev, I think one of the reasons people don't acknowledge their strengths, if you don't acknowledge your strengths, you most likely aren't going to understand your weaknesses because every strength comes with a weakness. So that's the first thing to understand. One of the other reasons why people don't acknowledge their strengths, there's a couple reasons. One is because of what you just said. It's socially unacceptable to say, I am good at blank. That's number 1. Number 2, your strengths actually make other people insecure. That's something that's very not talked about enough, in my opinion. And I'll give an example. I have an ex-girlfriend who was extremely, extremely beautiful and had a great physique. And I'll never forget this story. I've told it on the podcast before, but it was so alarming to witness. And she was walking next to someone who is insecure about her physique. And I understand, right? We all are insecure about our physiques in certain ways. I don't like my calves. I think I have tall giraffe legs. And again, huge strength in running, not a huge strength in bodybuilding.
Sorry for laughing. I just the
No,
way
it's
you said
okay.
it. The
It's
way
true.
you said it was funny.
It's
I wasn't
true.
prepared.
On the basketball court, those things go. I'll tell you what.
It's fair, yeah.
You know, in bodybuilding, not so much. So I'm in Newport, and my girlfriend is. It's hot. It's a hot summer day, and she had a shirt on or a hoodie on, and she's next to someone, and they're talking, and they're walking, and we're overlooking the cliff walk. For those of you who've been in Newport, beautiful ocean, cliff walk, awesome. Takes off her hoodie. She is extremely attractive, great body, and I will never forget it. The other person literally walked away from her. Her partner was behind me, and I heard her whisper in his ear, "Why does she always got to do that?" And it was like, what? So my girlfriend at the time is beautiful, and she didn't know she was doing this. She certainly didn't mean to do this, but she made other women insecure because she's just way more attractive, in my opinion, than they are. And it's not necessarily my opinion. She's just more attractive. She should be a model. She's beautiful. When my mom first met her, she said that. She's like, you need to be a model. But anyways, so here's my point. Beautiful physique, beautiful person, huge strength. In modeling, huge strength. Wonderful. In developing friendships with insecure women who are insecure about their looks, not necessarily a strength. I want everyone to understand that your greatest strengths make other people insecure. It's okay that that's the case. Kev, you were jacked in high school, man. You made other people insecure when you would take your shirt off. It is what it is, right? You should not lessen your strengths because I don't like that I haven't hit puberty yet. And it's really important to understand this. One more tiny example. There was someone in college who was brilliant and always got 100 on every test. And that would mess up. So in college, Kev, when I know you're gonna laugh at that. In college, Kev, I know you know.
Tell
this.
me about this.
Let me tell you what happens in college.
I've heard of this thing. College.
You've heard of this thing.
I don't know anything about it.
If everyone gets a 60 on a test, the teacher goes, "Okay, listen, this test is too hard. My bad."
They graded on a curve.
And they graded on a curve, exactly.
Of course, I was in math class where we all failed.
When someone gets a 100,
times.
they ruin the grading on a curve thing because it's like, obviously, see, this person got 100, so we're not gonna bump you 60s up to, so everyone else in the class gets insecure and upset because this one person happens to be a genius who crushed it and probably studied really hard too, right? So, number one, you don't know your strengths because it's not acceptable to own them. Number two, when you do own them, you do make those around you insecure. And that is what it is. I was with someone playing basketball who did a 360 dunk, and it's embarrassing. I remember one person threw the ball off the backboard, past me, and then reverse dunked on me in sandals when I lived in Venice Beach, California. That is embarrassing. But he should not lower his game to make me feel better about myself. That's my opinion, again. So I'm going to tell this brief story real quick. I was behind the scenes with someone who I think is incredible and who I think is what I call a too-mucher. Someone who's so competent and so incredible that they're afraid to show it because whenever they do, people tend to get insecure and sometimes they lash out, sometimes they avoid. A lot of us have different trauma responses to other people's strengths, particularly when we're insecure, myself included. So I said, so me and this person are behind the scenes and I say that you're a too-mucher. And I want you to lean into being better because your goals are going to require you to be more competent, not less. Everything everyone else wants you to dial down, I actually know you need to dial up if you want to achieve your dreams. She said, okay, fair. I said, I know how hard this is going to be. Permission to do something uncomfortable together. She's like, yes. I say, okay. So listeners, permission to have an uncomfortable conversation. Okay. If not, you can turn us off. All right. I said, I already know that you are better than Jane Smith at XYZ. Okay? You know it too. I want you to say it to me. I want you to say, I am better than Jane Smith at XYZ. And Jane Smith is John Doe, Jane Smith, whatever. It's not a real person. Okay? And she could not do it. She was like red in the face. It's so uncomfortable. See, if I say Kevin is stronger than me in the gym, that is so easy for me. But me saying that I'm smarter than Kevin is like super uncomfortable. It used to be a lot more uncomfortable. Now I've gotten better at this, and you've also said it publicly on the podcast, so I'm grateful. And you're also not insecure about that because you've already owned that, so that's great. And by the way, smarter in what, right? It's
life.
I think it depends on the arena, of course, right? There's certain things Kevin is smarter than me at, okay? But holistically, I would say that's fair. So uncomfortable. So uncomfortable. I want our listeners to actually have a moment where they say, I am better than most people at blank. And I wouldn't mind if you'd be willing to lead by example. I am better than most people at blank, Kev. Now, here's why it's scary for Kev to do this. Because it's going to be perceived as arrogance. But, if he wants to own his unique strengths and he really wants to develop them and grow them and build a business around them, he's going to have to know this inside of himself. He's going to have to face this truth, both good truth and bad truth. In this case, good truth. So, Kev, I am better than most people at blank. What do we got?
I am better at speaking than most people.
Okay. Was that hard for you?
I don't know. No, I don't think so. I think it depends on your conditioning. Even when I was going to ask you a follow-up. Do you think that? Okay, let's put it this way. I don't know if I've.
Red.
No, you're good.
I'm very uncomfortable.
Let me flip the question on you. Do you think that a too-mucher has a different relationship? I don't know if I've ever been classified as a too-mucher. So for me, it's almost like I've had so many people tell me that I'm really good at stuff. Remember, I'm the person who didn't believe in me. I'm very blessed where I had a lot of people who believed in me. So I think my experience is a little bit different. Now, am I afraid somebody who just listened to the first episode ever is like, oh my God, this Kevin dude is the worst? What do you have? Your mouth is open like a Haas.
I just had like a Haas. I had a big breakthrough. For you, I am weak at blank is harder.
I don't know.
That's way easier for me. I can share all my weaknesses very easily. I have a really hard time leaning into my strengths.
I don't know if...
Publicly.
I'm not good at systems. No, I don't think so. My weakness is... it's like a running joke. My weakness is systems and making things better. I'm really good at getting things up and running, but after that, they kind of crash and burn if Alan doesn't come help. What else am I weak at? Shield bumping people. Like...
Same.
Bringing people with egos down. Don't like it. Avoid it like the plague. That's
Same.
one. I'm not super organized.
In the beginning, though, you had trouble with that.
Maybe I wasn't confident. I don't know. I actually do believe I'm finally becoming confident where I feel comfortable stating both.
Oh. I didn't plan on this, but I think it's important for the listeners. I've created these 3 buckets that all of us fall into. All of us are all 3 of these, but we usually have a big one, a decent one, and a not much of us is this. The first bucket is pretenders. I've been there for sure, where you're pretending to be more competent than you really are. I've been there for sure, and that's just mostly ego. We all have one. If you think you don't have an ego, trust me, that's your ego. Okay, so pretenders bucket 1. And I would say that you and I in the beginning of this journey had a lot more of that than we do now.
Yeah, definitely.
Number 2, this is the bucket that I would put Kevin in now. Owner. You're just someone who kind of owns it. You own your strengths and your weaknesses. When you're not very good, you don't try to pretend you are. You're just like, honestly, my bad. I suck. My bad. Right? But then you also kind of own your strengths too. And then there's the too-muchers. The third bucket is the too-muchers. These are the people that really, really, really are so competent that they trigger the deepest insecurities of other people. And if you're listening, you might be a too-mucher in certain arenas. And unfortunately, that's probably connected to your biggest strengths and your biggest weakness, which is fear of offending other people. And so I hope that this all lands, because the 2 of the most important things you need to know about yourself, number 1, what are your strengths? Number 2, what are your weaknesses? And if you are really, really, really strong, you most likely have a weakness that comes with that usually has social repercussions.
It's interesting.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda. I am a dental hygienist and a mom of 2 teenagers. I was first introduced to Kevin and Alan about 3 years ago, so that led me to book a consultation with Alan, and I showed up to that call in the lowest spot that I have been at in my entire life. He is a good human that genuinely wants the best in your life, your future, your love, your relationships, your wealth, and you have the chance to be in the same room or on the same call or have these two in your life in any way, then you are blessed.
I just think at this point, you and I have had so many conversations, and I mean, I've been asked publicly so many times. That's the other thing too, is like, I'll get asked, like, what's your biggest strength? What's your biggest weakness? It's like, oh yeah, okay, we're going to do this. Okay. So I think for me, it's just, I used to think talking about a weakness was a weakness. Now I realize talking about a weakness is a strength. I think that's just my frame now, is like, it's the same, for me, I think that's the same thing as vulnerability, where are you going to reach out and say, I'm bad at systems, I'm the worst? Like, I know, I need to get better. Thank you. I know that. I'm trying. It's almost like if I admit it, it's the Eminem thing. If I admit it, you're not really going to use it against me. I think that's the way I think about it now from a weakness standpoint. And here's the other thing.
In the beginning, was it like that?
I don't know. No, probably not. I think it would be arrogant to say yes.
Because I think if we really are insecure about it, deep down, most likely it's hard to admit.
Well, I think anything you've admitted publicly, you're probably not for me at least, anything I've admitted publicly, I'm not really insecure about. So it's almost like, but here, this is the interesting thing too. I think the most important thing and the biggest reason why this is important is because your greatest strength is probably going to bring you to success. Your greatest weakness is going to stop you from getting to that level of success. So that's why it's like, if I could only learn 2 things about myself, it would be those 2. My biggest strength and my biggest weakness, because at least you can double and triple down on your biggest strength, and then you can shore up your biggest weakness, whatever that means to you. Having somebody help you, you've created a lot of the systems that I operate on. So does it suck? Yes. Is it potentially painful to talk about weaknesses? Yes. But you cannot turn a weakness into a strength until you realize it's a weakness first. And you can't understand how to leverage a strength until you realize it's a strength. If it's not a strength, it's just a skill, or it's just a habit, or it's just a thing. And when it becomes a strength, then it becomes powerful, and there's a lot of potential there.
I didn't realize this until this episode, and I hope the listeners can think about themselves in this. I didn't realize how much of a strength systems were for me.
Mm.
And you didn't realize how big of a weakness systems were for you.
Mm.
I didn't realize how much effective communication is actually a weakness for me. And you might not have realized how big of a strength it was for you.
Mm.
And it's so interesting how we've shored each other up so much in that, because you're usually the one saying, like, Alan, that's never going to land. And you've gotten me to finally understand that, and now I'm doing that with other people. Because I never would have known, we used to do top 10 ways to XYZ. And I looked back at one of my trainings from 2020, and it was horrible. I mean, it was great, but it was not well communicated. It's too much. It was like, it might as well have been that could have been a 4-day seminar. And I jammed it into 1 hour. And it was just overwhelming and not good. So it's just interesting how we've shored up each other's strengths and weaknesses without even knowing we were doing that. But maybe on some level we knew that was happening. But for the listeners, and let's use Kevin as an example here. There's no way you could have achieved your dreams without systems, dude.
I didn't know what systems were. When you say, like, maybe you didn't know how big of a weakness systems were, where would I have ever learned systems? In what, you know what I mean? In what job that I've ever done would I really, really learn reverse engineering systems? I wouldn't. I never would have learned that, most likely. There was no reason to. There's no reason.
Well, I would never have achieved my dreams if I didn't come up in communication, effective communication. And you would never have achieved your dreams if you didn't come up in systems.
For sure.
And so, but neither one of us really knew. And so for the listeners, what if they don't know? I didn't know. I would have told you I was a strong communicator.
You
back.
are compared to maybe other people. I think that's the interesting thing is like the reason you and I figured it out is because it was almost like, all right, man, you lead here. You're stronger than I. That's good enough in the beginning. You know, it's like if you and I are, I don't know, it's going to be a dumb analogy. If you and I are on an island and we have to like hunt and start a fire and build a raft, like you're going to be better at some things than I. That's good enough for that. It doesn't mean I'm the worst at it. It just means I'm not the best at it. And I think when you start with that small subset of like, oh, interesting, I get that point across better than Alan, or in a more effective way than Alan. Interesting. I've always looked up to Alan as a communicator. What does that mean? Okay, interesting. Am I better than I think? I think that's a good start. I mean, in your friend group, what are you the best at?
That's a good way to start. You know,
and
what are you the worst at? What are you the worst at, too? I have
not
no
from
problem.
an ego standpoint.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
It's very important to know where you fall in these things.
Ceilings
Self-awareness.
Ceilings and floor. I remember saying that. I don't need to know how many podcasts have 1,300 episodes because I need my ego to be padded. I just need to know because I want to know where we stand.
I know.
I need to know how much of a strength is this.
It's like a GPS in a car. You know where you started, your address, home address. You know where you want to go, and you plug in the destination address. But all along the way, when you lose Wi-Fi, when you lose LTE, you all of a sudden it's like no idea. I don't know where the car is. It seems like you're still miles back. That's kind of what it is. I need to know that the ceiling and the floor is where we started, where we're ending, and where are we now. And I think that if you know where you are now, based on the ceiling and the floor, now you can at least make sure you're doing the right things to stay on course towards your destiny. Or you have to change the GPS and be like, honestly, I don't have the skills to climb that mountain. Or I don't even want to do what it takes to get there. Because you and I talked about that marathon, or what was the...
I don't remember the marathoner's name, but so just for context, Alan and I are recording this on Patriots Day, which is Marathon Monday in Boston, and we're both in New England. So yeah, today is a day off for everybody. We were talking about that. But there's a marathon runner who has run a marathon in under 2 hours, I believe, and their average pace for their marathons are like for each mile is like 4 minutes and 25 seconds per mile or something over the 26, which is
4:35.
4:35, 4:25. Yeah, 10
Either
seconds
way.
matters a lot. Either way, yeah, it's world
insane.
class. Yeah.
So you said put the treadmill on 13
and then run for 2 hours straight.
and then run for 2 hours straight, which is insane. That's
I
the
heard this
ceiling.
on the radio, so
Yeah.
it was a sports radio, so I think it's accurate, but don't quote me.
But the point is that in marathon running, there's the ceiling.
Yeah.
And if you want to try to hit the ceiling one day, you got to evaluate and go, like, Kev, real talk. You know, you're 5'6".
I'm not gonna,
yeah,
I'm not gonna beat
not
that
possible
record.
for Kev.
No,
yeah, you can't beat that man. And that man is probably what, 6 feet tall? He's got to have legs on him, like a Haas.
I'm sure.
Right? So
I don't know the specifics. I could find out, but I don't know the specifics.
It's useful information for you to know your strengths and your weaknesses and the ceiling and the floor. It is. It's useful. It's very important.
But I understand it's hard. That's what I want to get across is, again, maybe it's easier for Alan and I at this point, but it's more of a strength now. At one point, talking about my weakness was a weakness, and now it's kind of a strength. Talking about my strengths at one point probably was a weakness. Now it's a strength. So just understand, maybe we make it look a little bit easier, but that's okay because we all start from our own starting block. I won't say we all start from the same place because that's not true.
I wonder if I'm good at either one. I think I'm pretty good at talking about my weaknesses. You're better at talking about my
your
strengths.
You're better at talking about your weaknesses for sure than your strengths.
You think so?
I think so. Yeah. I think you have a lot of negative.
Scared.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've come off as very arrogant, and I don't like that because it shuts people off to what they can learn, and figuring it out.
We are figuring it out. Strong one. This was a good one. Next Level Nation. Where do I have this? Oh, yes. We have a course that we're going to be recording, and it is going to be on self-belief and self-worth. So we have realized that our listeners, our community, there's kind of two frames. Some of you believe that you are capable of building this castle on the ocean. It's a beautiful castle. And you say, you know what? I know I can do that. I know for the next 10 years, I can go out there and build every single day. I have that level of self-belief in myself. There's also another camp of humans who they don't think they ever deserve to live in the castle that they have built because their self-worth is low. So self-belief versus self-worth, we didn't know about this for a long time. Alan's wonderful partner, Emilia, kind of raised his awareness and he's raised mine. And we're realizing how big this is for our community, not just our community, everybody, but particularly our community. We're going to do a course on it. I don't know if it's going to be free. I don't know if it's going to be paid yet, but we're going to do a course on it and it's going to be awesome.
Okay. When are we recording that?
Oh, who knows? We're recording this on Thursday, May 4th, and we're going to record a course every 3 months. So every quarter, we're going to record a new one.
The self-worth and self-belief, the common wound that we've found at NLU for our listeners tends to be low self-worth.
Yes.
The victim has low self-worth and low self-belief. The villain has inflated ego self-worth. That goes back to the pretender I was talking about. And again, we all have a villain inside of us. The hero has high self-belief and low self-worth, and then the guide has high self-belief and high self-worth, and that's where we're trying to help everyone become, including ourselves. So, high self-belief and high self-worth. Okay, habit tracking, yeah. So, you hear us on this podcast all the time talking about habit tracking. Kevin, probably 5 years ago now, started with 5 habits. Now he's tracking, I think, 27 a day. You don't ever have to get to 27. What'd you say?
I don't know how many it is.
Oh, okay. So start small. We have an app called Optimal, and it starts you out small. It starts with 3 habits. 1 under health, 1 under wealth, 1 under love. The link will be in the show notes to download the app. You can put it right on your phone home screen. We also have a tutorial video that we're going to link as well. If you want to start habit tracking, it will change your life. I've been habit tracking now for 7+ years, and looking back, you can kind of see what's made the biggest difference, whereas at the time, you don't really know how big of an impact it's going to be. I started in these little black notebooks behind me, and I started just with pencil, just erasing and checking stuff off, and now it's an app. So join us on Optimal, click the link in the show notes, and who knows where it will take you. If you start out and you say, you know what, I hate this, can it, all good, but start small, you never know.
Next Level Nation tomorrow for episode number 1313. Are you listening to the right people? I was reading a book or listening to a book recently, and something he said kind of broke something free in my brain, so I'm excited. This is going to be a very hyper-conscious episode, Alan. I'm very excited for that one. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Know thyself. Next Level Nation.